Okay, we are going to continue on the notes that we started in class today. So this should be actually part 5 of our intro to variables in Java. And so we're on number 4 right now. And so variable names that we're going to talk about. And so variable names, they must be descriptive of the values that they will store. Also, make sure that you have your JGrasp open to today's. In fact, you might want to look at this and then pause it if you need to. But make sure that you're in JGrasp. You have the basketball court document that we were working on in class. What we might not have done is we might not have finished these declarations. So make sure you have int length is assigned 84, and then int width is equal to 50 or is assigned 50, and then a blank system.out.println statement, and you could type in this here. There you go. Right. So if you need to pause it and do this, go ahead. In the meantime, we're going to go back to here. Okay, so variable names must be descriptive of the values that they will store. So keep as short as possible. Right? So when you name something, here's an example. You don't want to go number of hours if there's a way to make it shorter. And so one way to make it shorter is to abbreviate. So num is a common abbreviation of number. And then so num of hours would even be better. Then you also you could abbreviate hours and number. So num of hours here. Or maybe all you need to do is put hours. And so sometimes that works well enough. You just want to make sure it's descriptive and enough and you know what it's being used for. You always start with a lowercase letter. Always start with a lowercase letter and use camel casing. So each word in a multi-word identifier or variable name is capitalized, of course, except the first word, which is because it starts with a lowercase letter. So if you notice in JGrasp here, we have a lowercase l for length, lowercase w for width, and that's all we need to do. If you did something like court length, you would just go court and then capital L length, and that would cover it. So that's the camel casing. All right, so that is variables. And as we go on here, variable names. The next thing is an assignment operator. The assignment operator is the equal sign. The assignment operator is the equal sign. So we need to stop calling this an equal sign. So from now on, call this an assignment operator. It's read as is assigned. That's how you would read it. So it's read, you read this, you don't say is equal to, you say is assigned. So if you have an example would be here, it's int hours equals 10 is read as int hours is assigned 10. That's what's being stored in the memory location. So to assign means to store. To assign a variable means to store a value in that memory location. So when the compiler comes to the line here, int hours is assigned 10, what it does in the computer memory is it finds a memory location right here and it gives it the name hours, and then it configures it to hold ints so it won't handle a double, and then it assigns, it's assigned 10. In other words, it stores a 10 in its memory location so it can be used later. Alright, so that's how that works. Okay, then let's move on to number 6. Initializing a variable. Initialize means to give a variable its initial value at the time of its declaration. To initialize a variable means to give a variable its initial value at the time of its declaration. So initial, of course, means first. So your initial thought would be your first thought. Initials are the first letters of your names. So it's first. And so if you go back up here, then we see that int hours equals 10. It's being declared. This variable hours is being declared as an int. It's declared or defined as the name is hours, and then it's also being assigned a 10, all at the same time. That's why this assignment is actually called an initialization. It's been initialized because at the very beginning, at the time of declaration, it's been assigned a certain value. Now, initialization versus assignment. Now, initialization is the assigning of a value to a variable at the same time it is declared or defined, which we just talked about. Okay, so assigning a value to a variable at the same time it is declared or defined. In other words, it's on the same line as this declaration. An assignment is assigning a value to a variable that is, how did I want to put this? Assigning a value to a variable that was declared on a previous line of code. Okay, assignment is assigning a value to a variable that was declared on a previous line of code. The textbook calls this updating the value of a variable. Okay, so the textbook will call us the updating the value of the variable. So let's go to our JGrasp, and let's say that later on in the program, let's go ahead and hit enter after int width is assigned 50, and let's say later on in the program we want to, length shouldn't be capitalized, by the way, that's an accident. Alright, so let's say that we want to assign a new value to length. So maybe this was the basketball court, maybe we want to assign a value or a length to a badminton court. So an assignment is just the name of the variable is assigned, and let's say, I don't know what a badminton court is, but let's say 30 feet long. All right, so now what this is a declaration and an initialization, which is a form of an assignment, and this is just simply an assignment. This is not a declaration. And so what you'll see then, if we type length in the print statement and we compile and then run it, you'll see that it prints 30 because the length variable was 84, but then here it was updated to 30. It was changed to be 30 instead. All right, let's go back then to our notes, and there's something I need you to add here, and so I'm going to make it in red because for some reason I forgot to do this. But we need an example of an assignment. So a line of code where it's an assignment, there is no data type. Okay, no data type. So if you wanted just to assign something, we could just say hours is assigned 15. Bam, that's an assignment. All right, an assignment does not have the data type. And so this means that previous to this, hours was already declared as an int, and it might have even been initialized. But now we're updating it to just change it to hours to be 15. Okay, so we're now going to go and discuss a variable call. So a variable call is when the value of a variable is used. When the value of a variable is used, it is being called. So variables are used or called in the following. They're used in assignments, they're used in calculations, and they're used in the argument of print statements. Now here's a term that we haven't used yet, but we are going to start using this. So the argument of a print statement is, if you look at this example over here, here's a print statement. This SOP stands for system.out.println. Don't do this at home. And so inside these parentheses, now this won't let me select just inside the parentheses because I have to change the setting. But inside these parentheses, this whole thing is called the argument of the print statement, okay, or the print method, println method. So inside this argument, you can see this is where it's being used. So here's the example. You have a declaration and this is the memory location over here. So over here's, oh, crumb, you're kidding me. Oh, man. So over here is this is in a computer memory. And so here's the memory location's name is age, and it's got a 10 assigned to it or stored in it. So it's sitting there, it's waiting to be used. Well, it's used in the print statement. So we have a concatenation, which we're going to go over in a second. It says you are, and then it says age. Well, what it's doing is the compiler goes and looks in the computer memory and tries to find a memory location whose name is age. And here it is. And then it takes its value, so it actually prints the value of it. So that's how we get it to say you are 10 years old. All right, so here it's being declared, here it's being assigned or initialized, and here it's being used or called. Okay, so let's move on. Let's get rid of this. Type. So in a variable call, all you do is type the name of the variable without quotation marks. Type the name of the variable without quotation marks. So if we look at this example here in our JGraphs, we can see that we just typed length in here without quotation marks, because if we did put quotation marks, what would happen is it wouldn't be calling the variable anymore. In fact, what it would be doing is just simply printing the name of the variable, which you might want to do sometime. But what we're doing in our program is we're trying to call it for now. Okay, so take out those quotation marks if you did those, and we'll go back to here. So the next thing we want to talk about is concatenation. Now, concatenation is really important, and some people struggle with this. This does not have to be difficult. So concatenation is to join. Con means with, and so concatenation, it means to join different types of expressions together. So it can join a string or a string literal with a variable, or it can join a string with a constant. The textbook would say a string literal with a number of it literal. Okay, so a string and a number can be joined together. Concatenation operator is the plus sign. Okay, so it is the plus sign. But we need to call it the concatenation operator, not a plus sign, when it's being used as a concatenation operator. Now, the plus sign means addition when combining two numbers. So, concatenation means addition when it's combining two numbers. So if we go back to JGraphs, and let's say in here, length, we put 6 plus 5. Okay, if it were concatenating, it would be joining the 6 and the 5 together to come up with 65. But instead, it's adding. So if we compile and then run it, we see that it's actually printing 11. It actually did the operation of adding. Now, the plus sign means concatenation when it's joining a string and a number. So when it has a string or a number, you can't add a string and a number. You know, Bill plus 7. What is that going to be? 12? I mean, there's nothing you can do with that. So it's adding a string and a number together is actually concatenation. So peer plus 9, okay, is really joining the string together with the number or the constant and coming up with peer 9. So let's demonstrate that here. So if we went a string peer and then a 9, concatenate, and then run it, and you can see it says peer 9. So all it did is concatenate those things. Actually, what I should have done to really show it is put it together. So all it does is join those two together. All right, so then peer plus 9 plus 9. Well, maybe it adds the 9 plus 9 to get 81. Well, no, what happens, whoops, what happens is the compiler works from left to right. So what it does first is it takes these two, takes a string and a constant and makes it a string, pair 9. And so you take that new string and you add another 9 to it. All you're doing is taking a string and adding a constant. You're still just concatenating the whole time through. So it should say pair 99 because it's just joining all three things. All three expressions are joined together. They're being concatenated. The string at this number and then this number. And then but what if we use parentheses here? Well, this is like in math when you do the order of operations. And so you do parentheses first. Well, that's what happens here. The compiler actually will recognize that we have a parentheses in the argument here. And so it'll actually take the 9 plus 9 and add it together, because you have two numbers added together become another number. And then it's going to concatenate the string peer with the new number now 18. So it should say peer 18, which is what it does. All right, so that's good stuff to know how that works. So the compiler moves from left to right. Now, how do you decide what to concatenate? And this is where people can sometimes get frustrated with how to write their concatenation. So here's what we need to do. I'm going to demonstrate how this is done. And this is very important to be able to do this. So let's see if I can get this pen. And let's do that. Okay. So what happens is the desired output, let's say, is a high school basketball court is 84 feet long and 50 feet wide. And so you look at that, and of course I did this in cells so that you can see, well, there's a space here and a space here. It makes it easy to do this. So you should do this on your paper as well, along with me. As you're reading along here, what is the first expression you see that is actually the value of one of the variables? So what's the first expression you see that is the value of a variable? Well, what are the values of our variables? Well, let's go back to our JGraph, and let's get rid of this line here. And so in our program for this, we have an 84 and a 50. So there's an 84 and a 50 are the only two values. And so then we look in here, and so you're looking for an 84 or a 50. And lo and behold, there it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that, and we are going to draw a line like this. So go ahead and do this on your paper. Okay, and then do we see any more? Well, there's the 50. So we're going to go like this. All right, so now that means that if this is the value of a variable, we want to use the value of the variable. And so in JGraphs, we want to use length and we want to use width, those variables. We want to use their values. And so that's going to be, when we use a variable, remember, when the value of a variable is used, it is being called. All right? So we're going to use those, and so let's do that. We're going to put in here VC for variable call. And over here, we're going to put VC for variable call. That's supposed to be a C. I can't do this very well here. All right. Now, everything else is going to be printed literally. And what do we use for literal strings? We use quotation marks. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a quotation mark here. So go ahead and draw one there. And then all the way up to this point, you're going to use a quotation mark right at the borderline. So the very first character of this literal string, or string literal, is the A. And then all of these are characters, and it's going to end with the space. So you want it to literally print each letter and space as you see it. That is a literal string. Now the next literal string is going to start on the border of this one. So you just put quotation marks here. And so the first character of this literal string is the space. And then its last character is this space. And so we put quotation marks here. So that's another literal string. So let's go ahead and put string, str. If you want to write string out, you can. And let's put an str here. And then, now you've got a variable call. Now we're going to do a quotation marks here at the end of the variable call. And so the first value of this literal string is, our first character is a space, and the last character is the period. And so we'll put a quotation marks here. And so this is also a string. So what we are joining together is a string, a variable call, a string, a variable call, and a string. Now, what do we put in between those is we put these concatenation operators. So we're going to have a concatenation operator here, a concatenation operator here, concatenation operator here, and here. That's how these things get joined, is because of concatenation operators. So let's go back to our JGrasp and let's fix that here. The output is, we're going to go a high school basketball. Well, you know, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just copy this and put this in here. All right, so 84 right here is a variable call. Well, what you do is just type the name of the variable, length. But you need a quotation mark, and a plus sign, or a concatenation operator. And you see how the green stops here, and then this black is now the name of the variable. So we have a space here, and then for horizontal space, we're going to do a space bar here. It doesn't matter to the compiler, it's just for space. Then we're going to go to the end of the variable name and add a space and a concatenation operator. And then we are going to hit enter for the other space and start the next literal string until we get to 50. The 50 there, we'll add the quotation mark, the end of the literal string, space, concatenation operators, and then space, and then instead of 50, we're going to put width, because that's the name of the variable. And then we're going to go plus, or space, concatenation operator, space, and concatenation operator. Oops, sorry, quotation marks. And there you go. So we're concatenating, joining together a string, the value of a variable, a string, value of variable, and a string. And so when we then do the compiling and then run it, it'll say exactly what we want it to. A high school basketball court is 84 feet long, 50 feet wide. And so we didn't do that by just typing the string, a high school basketball court is 84 feet long and 50 feet wide. We did it by concatenation, combining strings and variable calls. That's how you do it. So let's see if we need to do anything else. Okay, so we are going to stop here at the bottom of page 3, and we'll pick this up at our next class.